everyone, in this video we're going to be looking at how to use TCM Weaver to quickly find options for substitutions for single herbs. We had a practitioner asking about mutong, so I'm going to start with this mutong, and for some reason this practitioner wants a substitute for mutong. So I'm just going to pull up the info on mutong itself and we'll expand that, and of course we can see it's in the herbs that drain dampness category. It's got a bitter flavor. The temperature is cold or cool, slightly cold. The channels it enters: urinary bladder, heart, small intestine. We can scroll down and see more information. Caution and contraindication for pregnancy, which maybe this is why the practitioner wants to substitute it, right? Maybe we want the mutong function or the actions, or it fits the indications or the pattern, except this patient's pregnant. Maybe that's the reason. So I'm going to show you how to do all this in TCM Weaver because we can pull from a massive data set and we can do it super quick. So we have the actions: promoting urination, these kinds of things, unblocking, right? Promoting lactation, draining heat. And then we have our indications: edema, irritability, these kinds of things. You can see some signs of heat with the tongue sores and trouble with the urination and that kind of thing. So there's mutong. Now we want to get a substitution for this. So there are different ways to navigate the database because this is a nonlinear organization of Chinese medicine. But I'll show you one way that's really cool is to click this category. And now we have the herbs that drain dampness list right here. And we could start to look at all these. You could check each one of these out, expand them. You could learn more, like, oh, okay, let's learn more about Bichier. And hey, it's bitter, just like mutong. You know, it's not cold, it's neutral. Maybe this is something that you could use for a similar function depending on the complaint, right? We can do that. You can kind of go one by one, which is awesome. But something else you could do, I'm just going to button this up here a little bit. Something else you could do is to just keep the herbs that drain dampness open and then go over to graph view. And now we have that node, and I'm going to use my wander mode and expand this out. And that shows us all the herbs in the drain dampness category and their connections to each other. So I'm just going to play with the display settings a little bit so that we can see everything a little bit more clearly, because there's a lot of info here. It's a big category. And we'll just turn this down. And now we can zoom in and we can see what everybody's doing in terms of connections. Like, for example, Han fungi and Mu fungi, there's some kind of connection here. Either it's going to be a similar species, or they're interchangeable, or it's a Paujur or something like that. You can see here's our mutong and Chuan mutong are connected. So you can get this graphical understanding of how the different herbs in the category are connected. And then what else we can do is we can start to filter this. So I can open up my filters and I can look at some of these graph filters. And for example, maybe it is an issue with pregnancy. So I can go to my precautions and I can choose to hide every herb with a caution for pregnancy and a contraindication for pregnancy. And now we have a much smaller list. So basically we've filtered the category down. Everything that's not good for pregnant women is now off the graph. What else we can do is go to the energetics, because remember, mutong, which is now hidden from the graph because it's contraindicated in pregnancy, so that's been taken away. But mutong was cool and cold, right? So what I can do if I'm looking for something that's cool or cold like mutong is I can hide all the hot herbs, I can hide all the warm herbs, and I can hide all the neutral herbs. And now my candidate pool for substitutions is getting smaller. So that's a cool way to narrow down the search. And now that I've got the board showing just graphically only the herbs that fit those criteria, I can switch back to my text view and it'll automatically pull open all the info for everything that was on the board. So I can go through this way and compare things without having to look at every single herb in the category. So I'll go back to my starting position here, and I'm just going to reset everything by clicking the TCM Weaver logo, and I'll type in mutong again. We'll get this on the board because I'm kind of playing around showing you different ways to do it. But if we want to do a search more by the characteristics than the category, then I want to look at what is mutong actually doing. So it's a bitter herb, it's a cool herb, and we also know that it's draining damp, so it's drying. It's a drying herb, and there are different symptoms. So for example, what if we said that this patient has edema and irritability, and that's why the practitioner wants to use mutong? So we want to find a substitution for that. So what I'm going to do is go back to my search, and I'm going to type in edema, and I'm going to type in irritability. And we have 14 different results that contain those two terms we could look at. I'm going to use my filters here, and I'm just going to look at the actual herbs themselves, so I don't see formulas and things like that. So now we've got down to 5 different results. Mutong's one of them. But if we were looking for this combination of symptoms, we now have the Chuan mutong, right, which I already said, we're not going to look at that one. We have this Luobumaya. What is this herb? Very interesting. Extinguish wind and stop tremors herb. It's also on the cool side. It's got a bitter flavor. This is kind of similar, right? Now we can look at the channels. We're probably going to find some different, see, these are different mechanisms, different actions, but there is a promote urination action. So this may be a place to start doing some research, right? We got urinary difficulty that was in common, like urinary dribbling, painful urinary dribbling, these kinds of things. We may see some overlap here. We could look at this Xiangru, open that up. Acrid, aromatic, warm. So this is on the other side of the spectrum. It's not cool, it's warm. And you could do some exploring here. We could look at Han Shui Shi, open that up. And we have acrid, salty, cold, right? So there's some different ways to go about this, looking at these things. So we'll start up a new search and I'll show you another way to go about this. Let's say we're looking for a drain damp type herb. And we can find there's 57 results. I'm just going to use my filters so that it's only showing the single herbs right there. And now we're down to 54 results. So on top of this function of draining dampness and that it's a single herb we're looking for, I'm going to scroll down here and let's look at the energetics right here. And let's say that we want, because we're looking for mutong, which was a cool herb. So let's say we want to find something that's either a cool herb or a cold herb. But what we could say is actually, I'm going to exclude hot herbs. So I'm going to click this twice, and now it's removing all hot herbs from the search. It's removing all warm herbs when I click this twice. And it's removing all neutral herbs when I click this twice. So what I've done here is removed all hot, warm, and neutral herbs from our search. So everything that's left is going to be on the cool or cold side in terms of energetics. So I'm going to close this back up. And then let's say I want to look at the channels because mutong has that urinary bladder channel affinity. So I'm going to just go ahead and click on this urinary bladder. And now we can see all these herbs drain damp. They're single herbs. They're not hot or warm, right, or neutral. And they all have some affinity for the urinary bladder. We've got down to 24 results. So this is a way to start filtering some of these things. We can see that Chuan Mutong is coming up again, right? There's Xie. And then it's a matter of looking at what else we want to do. Maybe I'm going to collapse this. And let's say that I wanted to make sure that it wasn't contraindicated for pregnant women, because maybe that's what's going on here in this case. So I'm going to go down to precautions, open that up. And I've got any herb with a caution for pregnancy or a contraindication for pregnancy. And I'm going to go ahead and double tap each of those to exclude both of those from our results. And we're down to 13 results. So now we have herbs from the drain damp category that aren't hot, aren't warm, and aren't neutral. So they're all on the cool or cold side. And none of them have an explicit contraindication for pregnancy, and they all have an affinity for the urinary bladder. So now we've got a list we can start to explore and try to find a suitable substitution for the mutong. If there was a symptom, like for example, let's say it was the edema that we're going after, I can always add that into my search field, edema, and it's going to shorten my list down to 5. Han Fangji, Lian Qian Sao, right? There's Zixie, Haijin Sha. We're not seeing mutong come up in the search anymore because we've excluded all the herbs that are contraindicated or cautioned during pregnancy. So here we have Han Fangji, Lian Qian Sao, Chao Zixie, which is going to be a powder of Zixie, and Haijin Sha. So depending on what the practitioner is looking for, this is a great way to start narrowing down the research. And you're also pulling from different categories depending on how you structure your search. Since I've got all these 5 herbs pulled up here, instead of expanding them all to compare them, I'm just going to go to my graph view, and there they all are. We can see that these 2 are connected because they're a powder. And of course, I can start to open up wander mode on all these and get more information. Or since I've pulled them all onto the graph, when I go back to text view, they're all going to be automatically opened, and I can compare this way as well. And then we can find something that's going to be a good fit. Okay, I hope that helps you and your patients when you're looking for herbal substitutions. Cheers.